Let's get it started with Michael in Florida. Michael, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah. Hi, Erin V. Chris, how are y'all doing tonight?
Hey, not too bad. What's on
Good.
your mind?
Great. So basically, I was just calling because I actually remember asking this question last week in the Q&A on Discord, but for some reason I left, and I guess I got back in as you were answering it, Chris. I didn't really get the full answer. But yeah, so my topic is, or I guess my question is, when it comes to relationships, more specifically intimate relationships, how can you have, like, what would be a good way to have a relationship with someone who has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder? And if you are the one with BPD, how can you have good relationships with other people?
Yeah, that's definitely a complex question. So I want to just acknowledge at the outset that we'll offer some tips, some maybe places to look, but how to have a relationship is, I don't know, 50% of this show that we've been doing for 2+ years without really scratching the surface. So I want to just acknowledge the depth of what you're coming up against. And also that it can feel really stressful and overwhelming because you're going to get a lot of mixed advice, and that there are some really meaningful challenges here. But more than anything, I want to try and pull some of those labels out of here and just acknowledge that the best way to be in a relationship is to be in a relationship. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic problem that you're going to solve just by bringing in this like psychological or psychiatric language. So when we're talking specifically about borderline personality disorder, we're generally referring to a lot of trauma. We're generally referring to perhaps some discomfort around emotional flooding and some challenges that make it difficult to be in relationship because of those strong emotions. And so I think taking any kind of trauma-informed approach that recognizes in yourself or in your partner what some of those trauma responses can be, how those emotions can become overwhelming, and finding ways to really mitigate that. Coming with different coping strategies and communication strategies that allow you to stay connected, even if you're being overwhelmed by some pretty challenging psychological phenomena. Now, I know that's a very kind of clinical question. Maybe if you could let us know a little bit about what you're seeing and experiencing, we might be able to help guide you through it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not really in a relationship right now, but I guess with me, like there were a couple times in my life where I thought I did have borderline personality disorder, and I've been talking to a therapist about it, but she doesn't really think that I have borderline. Yeah, I guess like when we talk about things like being able to control my temper and stuff, like I do see that as something that I do struggle with and something that I want to work on personally. Whether or not it is I guess a borderline symptom, like it's complicated because like I'm not a licensed psychologist or therapist or anything, but I guess like reading, like researching about BPD, I can understand why it would be very challenging to have like good relationships if you are the one with BPD, because a lot of it, like you point out, Chris, is a lot of emotional trauma. And I've heard it described as kind of like being someone like an emotional burn victim, just because of like the way people with BPD experience emotions is different. So yeah, like I'm not in a relationship.
Well, let me weigh in quickly if I can, just to say that, the metaphor of sensitivity, of being a burn victim, having experienced past trauma, and then maybe having a hypersensitivity, that plays. There's some validity there. But I want to be really careful when we're talking about how, we do this and people with borderline do that and breaking people into categories, because borderline personality disorder and most of the things that we discuss in the mental health field aren't really yes or no answers. They're not necessarily check boxes. You may or may not qualify for the diagnostic criteria that statistically would lump you in with other people that have the qualifications for that diagnosis. But that's all just a bunch of word salad to say that we're people and we're individuals, and some of your characteristics might line up with those characteristics. And that's something to be curious about. Perhaps there's an opportunity for some personal growth and development. Sounds like you're working with a therapist who's helping with all of that. But let me discourage you from this idea that there's something wrong with you and therefore you need to go out, diagnose it, cure it, treat it and cure it. Because I just don't know that approach is going to get you the relationship or the love and affection that you're seeking for.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess maybe a lot of it, well, in my case personally, is when it comes to the emotional trauma, like I obviously don't want to go into too much detail about it because it's, public, but I do see some of the signs of that in my life. And while there is a good chance that I don't think I have BPD, I think that a lot of the emotional trauma, while I don't see it as a disease that needs to be cured, I do see it as something like one of those challenges in life where it's something that, while I don't think it makes me a bad person, or any mental disease makes anybody a bad person, I think it's one of those things that I do see myself working on just to live the life and have the happiness that I want.
Yeah, and if I can jump in real quick, Michael, I think that's the key here. And as out of my depth as I feel sometimes listening to Christy go on about the psychological elements of this, from what I can contribute, I would just say you seem like you have a really good idea of kind of what your personal struggles are and how it might impact the people around you, and a goal to address those and maybe get help where you need it. And those things by themselves, that self-awareness and that concern not only for self-betterment, but making sure that the people around you are being, cared for and addressed respectfully. Those things by themselves sound like you're setting yourself up well for a relationship when and if you should decide to pursue one.
Well, good. Yeah, that sounds very encouraging. And I think that was a really good point, V, because I think that a lot of times when we think about especially mental disease, I think a lot of it is like, for example, if I'm the one who thinks that I have like a mental condition, then I can see how I fall into the trap of only thinking about how it affects me. What am I going to do? Mostly about myself. But a lot of times I think what could help me much better is thinking about how it affects other people. So like, not thinking less of myself, but kind of thinking of myself less and shifting a lot of that concern on the other people in my life.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, everybody has the capability to hurt other people. And that could be because of a mental condition. It could be because of a physical one. It could just be because we're all people and we all make mistakes sometimes. So I think a good balance of looking at yourself and taking care of yourself and getting the information you need, whether it's calling in to a show like this or going to therapy, as well as keeping an eye on other people around you and seeing what the impact of your existence has on other people. Those two things, I think, as far as I'm concerned, are beneficial when pursuing a relationship.
Yeah, and I'll just add before we let you go for the night that, as a stranger on the internet who doesn't know your story, who doesn't know what you're up against, what your goals are, or what you're looking for, I might encourage you to get out of your head. to get out into the world, to get into relationships, whether that's sexual and romantic or friendships of different sorts, and to enjoy those things. Be mindful if you make a mistake, do what you can to repair it, but try to keep it simple to the best of your ability, and try to see yourself as a human being interacting imperfectly with other human beings. I think that very simple medicine can go a long way here.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for calling
we
in,
appreciate
Michael.
hearing from you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you have a great night.